Well, Cheryl Ladd, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I guess the most important question that we want to ask you just right out of the gate is, how are you doing? How is your family through all this pandemic? Everybody well? Everybody surviving this?
We are, knock on wood, praise the Lord, we are all well.
Good. Well, that's great to hear. I think, like many in our audience, you have this really interesting way of putting your perspective on aging. And I read this, I found this in my research of you. You have this great quote. You say that aging should be approached optimistically. And I love that. I know our audience is going to relate to that too. You suggest that some of the approach is mental, some of it is physical, but that you really need to have a take charge attitude about your health. And again, I know our audience is going to love this. I love that kind of that state of mind too, that idea of taking charge. So give our audience a little bit of advice about how they can take charge of their health.
Well, you're really the driver of your vehicle. And for me, staying fit and exercising and eating right and eating well, and not perfectly. It's not about perfect. It's about just on a pretty regular basis, take really good care of yourself, as I say, and eat well and exercise. That's really huge. Also, sleeping well is important. Don't stay up all night long, and then you'll feel miserable the next day, and then you've thrown your whole system off. Try to get good sleep. And the other thing is, have a center for yourself. I pray. I talk to the Lord and I pray, and I keep him very close to me and me close to him. And I feel sometimes when everything gets so overwhelming, I don't have a hard time handling it. I just pray. It helps me. And I think everybody should have that thing that helps them. A quiet time, a settling time, where you take the weight of the world off your shoulders and you just let something else happen and let someone else handle it, and just say, okay, I'm not dealing with this really well right now and I need help. And generally speaking, help arrives and you just get through that bad moment. We all have bad moments, especially through all of this. And the worst part for me about COVID is we can't hug each other. We can't hold each other. I want to be hugged and I want to hug. And it's driving me crazy that I can't do that. I have so many wonderful friends and know so many wonderful people. And being affectionate with each other, and it's important. It's something we all miss so much, and you don't really know how much you miss it until you see somebody at a distance that you haven't seen in a long time and you love them and you go, hey, and then you back up and go, sorry, I have to keep my mask on and don't touch me. Right. I'm sick of that. Right. I want that to change quickly.
Well, thank you for that. And speaking of health, and certainly it's on all of our minds with respect to the pandemic and the subject of how do we stay well during this time period. We're all looking for advice from many, many places. I am a religious person, and many in our audience are as well. And so I'd like to ask you a question about the subject of being a caregiver, because many in our audience are caregivers, as you were at one phase in this particular condition within your family, and particularly with your husband. So what advice do you give to caregivers about the subject of cataracts? How do we pay attention better?
Well, it's really interesting that my husband had the experience first. I got a little bit of the education talking to all the doctors about him and what they were going to do and all of that. So that was kind of helpful for me, except I didn't handle it as gracefully as he did. I think I have been so optimistic my whole life, but when I couldn't drive at night, when I had to deal with the fact that my life was really changing and I couldn't just be Cheryl and I couldn't just hop in the car and go see my girlfriend and, do the things that I used to do. I couldn't thread a needle. I couldn't sew on a button. It started really wearing on me, and all my optimism was kind of waning, and I started to feel old. And I had never had that feeling in my body before. And so when I went for my cataract issue, I didn't even know I had cataracts. I just went to the doctor thinking he was going to give me, bigger, different glasses that would correct more of my sight. We got there, and he said, "Oh, Cheryl, you have cataracts." And I said, "Why are you smiling?" Cataracts. Our grandparents are supposed to have cataracts. Well, I am a grandparent, so I just kind of didn't want to put that two and two together. He said, "Yes, don't worry about it. There are things we can do. We can replace your lenses." And so we talked it through for a while, and I discovered that there is a panoptics lens, and that is the lens that I chose because it has a trifocal lens. So it functions pretty much like your regular eye. So you can read tiny little print and books, and you can see the computer, and you can see far in the distance, and I can drive at night. Literally, I say this a lot, but it was like living in Kansas and stepping into Oz when I had them done. It was like somebody turned the light on in the world. I could see again so clearly and see all the colors and the distance and everything. I just felt so blessed. I was so grateful that I got to live in a time when we get not just correction or cataract surgery, but to have the eyes I had when I was 12 years old. That's how I felt. And guess what? Bam. It was like, I'm young again. I'm me again. I get to drive where I want to go again. I cannot tell you the difference it made. And when I'm playing golf, I can see where my ball is. I don't have to have somebody else tell me where it went. It's changed my life enormously. I love talking about it. And it's so important that we share this information with each other, because you don't have to let it ruin your life.
I guess, so my big question then maybe about the subject of cataracts, and in particular your own cataract surgery, is cataract surgery painful?
No, you don't feel anything. And it took about 10 minutes. Wow. This is a true story. I was on the little thing, and they were going to take me into the surgery, and they give you that little bit of joy juice. And then I woke up, and I kind of looked up at my husband, and I said, "Well, when are they going to do it?" He said, "Honey, it's all done." It took 10 minutes. That they do make you comfortable, but they don't fill you with tons of drugs and stuff like that, which is amazing. And you're kind of yourself very quickly thereafter, except you can see. It was astonishing that when I came home, and I only had the one done, the one cataract fixed, and I was home, and I popped a button on my shirt, and I ran and I got the sewing box, and I'm telling you, I hadn't been able to thread a needle and fix something for years. So I said, well, maybe I'll be able to do this. I picked up the needle, zoop, put that thread right in there, and I went, hallelujah. I can see. It was amazing. It was just an amazing moment. And then I knew exactly what the surgery was like, how easy it was, how easy the recovery was. And I couldn't wait to get the other one done. And now I have the eyes of a 12-year-old, and I'm feeling young again and able and capable and optimistic again.
Well, I can relate. My wife and I have two boys, and I've always been the one to hem pants and do a little bit of light sewing. Right now, I use.
For you.
Yeah. I actually kind of enjoy that. It's a little bit, it's kind of fun work to do, and I appreciate doing it for the boys too. But I use readers for some of that. But there's a real distinction between what we might use readers for and some of the symptoms that you might have experienced with cataracts too. What was the big difference for you? Because I assume maybe you were using readers prior to the cataracts. Reading glasses,
yes.
I'm referring to.
And I kept getting them. More magnifying and more magnifying. Then I went and got actual glasses. And I did that, the whole routine. But for me, it was so murky. My eyesight was so it's hard to describe, murky. And I didn't feel confident driving at night. And that's just not me. That I just felt my life was just slowly closing in, and that I for the first time in my life, I felt, oh, I'm old. I'm old. And it wasn't a good feeling, because really, generally speaking, I didn't feel old at all, except I couldn't see and I couldn't drive. So when I went to the doctor and I had the cataract surgery, it was just miraculous. I stepped into Oz. Everything's brightly colored. It's like somebody turned a light switch on, and I went, oh, look at that world. Isn't it beautiful? And that's why I love talking about it. It affected me so negatively early on, and now it's a miracle to me to have my great eyesight back and my energy back, and I don't feel old. I feel young.
We so appreciate your time today, especially about this information and sharing it more broadly about this subject of cataracts, because I know it is on many of our audience minds, and certainly we value it, the information coming from you, and such a credible source. So how can our audience learn more about the subject of cataracts, and maybe your story too, a little bit deeper?
You can go to mycataracts.com, and there's so much information there, everything you really would want to know, and of course go and see your doctor, because he can tell you right away if you have them, and if they are not at a place yet where they would recommend you put. Oh, my doggy just came in. To put your new lenses in. But yeah, there's wonderful information. And actually on that same website, they have my little story about what happened to me. And you can hear more about that and what has happened since I've had my cataract surgery. It's very helpful. I hope everyone who is thinking about it. You know, the interesting thing about cataracts that I didn't know is that you can get them in your 40s or you can get them in your 90s. If you live long enough, everyone will have cataracts. It's just the way it goes. It's just nature, and that's what happens. So the fact that we're in this wonderful time of our lives where we have these amazing lenses and we can get our eyesight back and really be in our lives again, it's very, very important. And I'm just so thrilled to be talking about it and to share my story about it. I want other people to have that same experience if you have cataracts, and that there are things you can do and get your life back and feel good and feel young and in your world. It's very important.
Well, Cheryl Ladd, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. We know you're very busy. We value the generous information. We're going to put links up to where our audience can find out more information about Cheryl Ladd, what she's doing, all of her work on the subject of cataracts, cataract surgery, and important resources for you to learn more. But I guess, Cheryl Ladd, we can't leave without asking you this final question, because we're all fans of your work. So what else are you working on? And we love your many roles. So tell us about the upcoming acting projects that you've got in store.
Well, I have a Christmas movie that's going to be on Lifetime on October 24th. It's called Christmas Unwrapped. I play a very interesting boss lady. It was great. It was good fun. So that'll be on in October. More coming, but until it's signed on the dotted line, we don't talk about it. But yes, I have a few more things in the hopper.
Great. Well, Cheryl Ladd, thank you so much again for your time. We appreciate it. My best to you and your family. Hope everything works out well for you guys, and stay strong during this period. Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate you letting me talk to people and let people know that there is help out there.
Well, thank you.